Okay, hi, friends, and welcome. It has been a while since we have had an identification as being meeting, but I think I have an interesting kind of meditation for you today. And you know what my method is pretty much. It's part lecture and part meditation. We, as you know, have added to our program. I was just discussing with Michael Crow here, um, 4 different programs now in addition. So we have, our relationship to the animal kingdom, and we have Shambhala, and we have work on group work. And what's the other one, Michael? There's one more. Is it
ask climate, ask animal, group study, and then wow, I just forgot to. The third, the fourth one is
calling upon angels.
The angels. Oh, is that a 5th?
Shambhala.
Shambhala. And,
so there's a 5th.
Right.
Calling on angels and then Shambhala.
And you're quite right, BL. We're going to do one, that's a special area of work for Tuya, this whole angel evolution. So, well, fortunately, what I find is that the Tibetan has written one big book, basically, and that everything does relate to everything else. So all kinds of things may come up at any one of these programs that touches on the other programs. And the idea is that some kind of synthetic understanding, which is, I would say, like a equivalent to inclusive reason or pure reason. And, those two things involve the abstract mind of the triad, and they involve also the intuitive levels of the Buddhic plane. So some synthetic understanding does, I think, approximate what we're trying to achieve in these various kinds of programs and the action that can come to us as a result of as a result of this work together, largely meditative work. And I think our goal somehow meditatively is not only to understand deeply, but to help in this ongoing global battle within humanity between its so far unredeemed and unregenerate dweller on the threshold and humanity's angel of the presence. And that's why we so often, ask for the intervention of the higher powers as part of our invocative appeal. Maybe it can even reach the lords of liberation, because when you think about it, so many people are in, what can I call it, a myopic, glamorous, illusory prison. It's a kind of a psychological prison that is related to their stage of evolution, but oftentimes to the kind of education that they have received in a conventional sense, hammered in, pounded in, until it's become an article of belief. We have other kinds of expectations that will help them pass, and help ourselves to pass from the personality stage into a stage much more influenced by the angel of the presence. So that's what we're, that's what we're working on. The kind of work we and try to keep that in mind too, because we do have a lot of things cooking within the consciousness of humanity, and there's, Mars is the rebel, and it fights against the law, and the law is Saturn. This is all part of a great third ray being, within which, or within whom, Saturn is the mental vehicle, Mars the emotional vehicle, and Earth the physical vehicle. Page 99 of Esoteric Psychology II. So we have to be aware that there is a rebellion going on against the law, and that the forces of darkness, or the lords of form, whatever we want to call them, are fomenting that rebellion. And we have to do everything we can, I'm sorry, esoterically, and of course in outer ways as much as we can, to help offset that continuous incitement towards rebellion. We kind of think, that, well, the capital of the United States was attacked and there was an incitement by the former president, but that's like nothing, that it's huge, and yet compared to the kind of incitement that is going on using the most surreptitious occult methods by the forces of darkness, that's the real incitement. And it's just filled with the cloak of glamour and illusion. Tomorrow morning, of course, we will have at 6 a.m. the continuation of the glamour work. We try to do that as much as possible every week. And then Cosmic Fire, as much in depth as we can manage, will be at 6 p.m. GMT tomorrow, Friday. So that's just a little bit of a look, an outlook on what we're trying to do. And I think most of you are on constant contact. If for any reason you stop receiving the schedules, something has happened and you probably have inadvertently unsubscribed from constant contact. So let us know if for any reason. Write to us if for any reason you have stopped receiving these weekly schedules. And I think the monthly schedule is on, what is it on, Makara, or where is it? But there is a monthly schedule as well, which helps us orient for the entire month. Okay, well, those are some of the background issues about what we're all trying to do together. Now, maybe the work, this kind of work that we're attempting is the most subtle of all of our efforts, because it is transformal. And as enlightened as we think we may be, we are still thinking very much in terms of the form. And we have to learn, of course, how to do that skillfully and successfully, and yet we have to also have a mode of our consciousness which is transformal beyond any limitation which the form presents. And that's what we're, tonight we'll try to do that in yet another way. We always do that. But here's a little different kind of lecture meditation tonight that focuses specifically on that. So I'm going to get into that right away. I just want to, I'm glad you're here, welcome you, Michael Crow and BL, helping with all of these organizational and technical matters. And Anna, welcome, and Annette and Astra, pardon me, and Catherine, Fred, Heike, Jesse, Joan, and Johi, and Leslie, Lorianne, and Martine, and Miro, and Risto, and Thomas, Tuya's here too to help us along, and Vicky and Vivian. Maybe more will join us as we go, but I just, do the welcoming one time when I do it. All right. So we're going to get into this little bit of this lecture meditation. It's in a way the 33rd. I think we're in series 5. I'm not sure, series 4 or 5, but doesn't make any difference really.
Michael,
Yeah.
this is series 5, program 2.
Oh, okay. Well, that helps. I was wondering where we were. Well, we're always in the same place. That's the interesting thing. And that place is no place, but then that's our special language, for these things. So let's, this is our meditation, and at the same time, a bit of a lecture. So first of all, we'll all simply come together, all of us that have gathered here, and have a few moments of silence, which is always conducive to achieving unity and eventual oneness in consciousness. We might really try to understand that maybe I can put it down in certain words. That silence synthesizes. Now, I would like all of us to attempt, in whatever way we find we can, to find a place or position, can we call it that, beneath the form or under any form, in order to achieve, as the Tibetan illuminates the word, in order to achieve understanding. So this is going to mean that whatever form we may perceive, somehow we become the underlying factor in every form. Now, we'll find that kind of perception within the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali in the later books, when he discusses the idea that even the entire cosmos is within us. And the old mystic adage, break the twig and I am there. Well, even if you don't break it, you are there. So there's a kind of, you are a presence, a here-ness, a there-ness. Those words are not terribly useful, but you are a presence, substanding all perceptions. You substand all perceptions, and really all forms are self-perceptions. We're used to that idea by now. Now, try to realize that if you think of your identity as bounded by adjacent forms, you are making a fundamental mistake in ontological perception. Which basically ends up being the perception of being. So the whole world of human beings at their particular level of ignorance is identifying with one form or another. And the thing that makes a form is that it is bounded by another perception. If I look at a lamp here, the perception of the table bounds it, and the table is bounded by other perceptions. So everywhere we look, there appear to be boundaries. Remember that when we're looking at reality, we have something in the first fundamental of the secret doctrine called the boundless, immutable principle. So we don't want to fall into that conventional mistake of thinking that we are some bounded thing. You know, you look in the mirror and you think you see what you are, who you are, or as you move through your environment with this body and with my emotions and your emotions and my thoughts and your thoughts, we're always thinking in a boundaried way. We have to get over that. Of course, to be practical, we retain that kind of perception. But when we really go for the reality, then we set aside what we normally call practical, relational thinking or perception. So if you look at any boundary between two apparent perceptions and think, this is I and that is not I, then you or I are making a fundamental ontological mistake. In these higher states of contemplation, the this and the that are the same. And that we call, you know, the contemplative union between subject and object. And the highest states of samadhi achieve this. Samadhi really is exalted contemplation. So let us begin with those thoughts in mind, thinking about the boundless universal light. Matter of fact, every environment is really a different form of light. But light is one within the universal perception. Now, there is one boundary here, but, it's so remote that we don't have to worry about it. The only boundary is the limit of the universal logos's self-perception, which to us is unimaginable. If there's nothing beyond the something of the universe, it is the cessation of universal logoic perception. Nothing more is the cessation of universal logoic self-perception. That's probably have to be pondered on. So we begin to think about virtually boundless light, boundless universal light, revealing everything within the universal logoic perception. Bringing into a kind of objectivity that which the universal logos registers or sees of itself. Boundless light, unboundaried light. Now, in that light we shall see light. And it's as if every type of perception is a type of light which the greater light reveals. DK speaks to a man and foretells his death and says, this meditation is good for you for now, solving your problems until such time as you enter into that light wherein consciousness awakens, free from the bonds of flesh. So every stratum of possible perception is a different form of light, as in the Kabbalah. But that light, those various lights, are made one in the great light, the great universal light, which is kind of a efflux of the universal logos. Now, coming back down to something more familiar, try to realize that rather than being a bounded being, you are that light, and dwell identificatorily on this statement that DK emphasizes: I am the light of the world. I am the light of the world. Now, we're not Christ, Buddha, or Hermes in the relative sense. They, says DK, know they are that light, and we have yet to realize it because of the reduction of our sensitivity and scope of registration. I am the light of the world. Let's ponder on that. Now, that's going to mean, I am unbounded light, unbounded universal light. We won't worry about the perceptual boundary of the universe, which is not really a boundary, but it's a cessation of self-perception. A boundary, the ultimate boundary of the universe, is a cessation of universal self-perception. We don't worry about that. The universe, any universe, is so vast compared to what we are relatively that we can think of unbounded universal light. So dwell on this identificatorily. By now you know what that means. On I am the light of the world. Literally, you are that light. And anywhere that revelation comes through that great universal light, you are that lighted revealer. No boundaries, let's say. Wherever there is revelation, you are the unbounded revealing agent of that revelation. Or maybe we'll just call it light. I am the light of the world. And wherever anything comes to light, you are the light to which it comes. And whatever vehicle you seem to have, that's just a formal relativity. More essentially, you are the light of the world. Wherever, whenever, revelation arises, you are the agent of that revelation, be it even at the farthest reaches of our known, of our universe. Nothing, no form can hold back or contain your lighted presence. No form can contain the lighted presence which you are. Now, obviously, years of pondering are required, and maybe lifetimes. We won't worry about supra-universal light. We don't have to get into it for this exercise. Imagine waking up in the morning in your relative existence and saying and meaning, I am the light of the world. And by the world, we do mean the universe, our universe. Now we'll take it further, realizing that universal love transcends all possibility of intra-universal boundaries, boundaries that contain it within the universe. It cannot be contained in any given form and not in another, at least essentially. Realize that. Universal love. Our little realization cannot be what a logos would have of, ascending logoi But, for a human being, just think about universal love. You can reject a form, but not the inner essence of anything. And that would bring us into the mind as it is in Christ, that loving mind. And all the masters know that. So dwelling on this universal love, all-pervading, pervading all forms and not bounded by any intra-universal form, dwelling on that universal love and all it embraces, try to realize that rather than a bounded little being, you are that love. And dwell then, here's our word, identificatorily, on I am the love of the world. Wherever there is love, it's not just that you're there, it's that that is you. Like wherever there is light, it's not just that you see. That light is you. This love is you. I am the love of the world. Let us dwell initially on that, though it may take years and lives to make it our everyday perception. I am the love of the world. You are that energy, universal energy of love, which pulls all things together in harmonious, unitive relationship. So you are the divine uniter. You, not the little form you have thought you were. Wherever there is love, whenever there is love, that love is not just I love you. That love is you. And I will say that all essences are lovable in that love which you are. It's a cosmic energy. And not a sentimental mode of perception. The Christ is on the fifth path, on the way of higher evolution, or will take that path. That's the ray path. And he is to become a ray of love. Certainly any form, any Mayavarupa by which we might recognize him is not what he is. He will become a ray of love, which is on the way to the kind of self-realization we're talking about. I am the love of the world. Even though forms may be repudiated until they can reveal the love which I, you, am. And what of this great power that we call the form transcending universal will? Can we do the same? It is sometimes called the prime mover. Can we dwell identificatorily on I am the will of the world, the universal will? Something's moving everything, putting pressure, the pressure of purpose on all perceptions, all self-perceptions. It is remote, but can we say, I am the will, the divine will of the world, and not some bounded relativity? Every time the will is exerted in any way, that I am that will. And that connects us with all movement, all change. It is the will that creates change, and the will that sustains changelessness. So who is responsible if I am the will of the world? Albeit not rightly registered by the many reduced forms. But behind it all, it's not just that I exert will, I, the big I, am the will exerted, asserted. And finally, will being remote enough, but the very theme of our work together on being, the being, the presence, the universal boundless being, boundless in the sense that we can appreciate boundlessness, the universal being, substanding, understanding all light, love, and will. I am universal being, substanding all light, love, and will. And wherever anything is, I am the isness of it. I am the isness of that is. Uncontained, unbounded by any form. the light revealing, the love embracing, the will driving, and the being, which is all. I be you, or any it, or any perception. I'll save the rest for later. We are not essentially a bounded little form, adjacent to a myriad other little forms. That's not correct, though it is practical and necessary in the Mahamaya. There is a way to know that we are the great universal principles, and that still more subtle ultimate factor, which underlies all those principles. Our limited minds suppose this and suppose that. But if the dragon's eye opens, even for a moment, revelation of the unexpected comes. And the more the eye stays open, the more we live as being with the great universal derivatives of being. The light, the love, the will. So every day in our relative life, let us work a little even to be everything we perceive. Because that's the truth of the matter. Beyond all relativity, that is, beyond relationship, beyond formal boundaries, into an unsuspected identification. Nothing can stop us from being exactly what we are, which is all the same thing. As in the divine Pimander, the only one thing. Oh. Om. So look, I'd like to get this meditation to you, whatever's the best way to do that. Because as you can understand, if you go through this kind of thing once, it's not enough. And of course, this will be put up on Makara and maybe on YouTube too. And one can review it, you know, because it contains many essences and great declarations made by some of the most illumined human beings in our whole Atlantean and Aryan ages. So admittedly, the issues touched upon are remote from our usual considerations, but that's the whole thing. You just don't know what lies ahead as a relative little being until it happens. And then you say to yourself, I thought it was this, but it turned out to be that. It wasn't at all the way I thought it was. So it's worth the relative time taken to practice all this. Now, obviously, we're living practically in a world with many relationships, and those relationships are out of balance with divine purpose, and the divine plan is not yet manifest. And there are many crises in a relativistic sense. So obviously, we have to pay attention to those conditions. But then there is the unconditional behind everything. And just a little bit of familiarity with the unconditioned, the causeless, the immutable, the changeless, the unbounded, just a little bit of familiarity with what that may be makes a very needed contrast with the relative, and deepens, of course, one's spiritual life. So I suppose that this would be the end of program, is it 2, series 5.
Sorry, yes, I kept trying to unmute myself and couldn't. I also wanted to tell you that if you send me this meditation, I can post it to Makara with the recording. If you send me the Word document.
I will do that, BLN. Thank you. I will do that. Well, you know, we only have so much relative time to give to these kinds of considerations of the unconditional life. But even a little relative time given to it is of value, at least certainly in my estimation. And that's all I can give you, obviously. Now, we've entered Pisces now today, you know, at 10:43 and 49 seconds. We've entered Pisces, and of course, Pisces is that great absorbing cosmic decanate Pisces takes from all the signs. So maybe we have a good time to consider this kind of meditation, you know. Because you can really feel the energy change, you know. And as to what is energy, well, I have some thoughts about that. I've always been a bit stumped by what is energy, but, you know, I keep meditating upon it and hopefully come up with something that at least makes sense to me, and maybe it will make sense to you. And let's see, there's a couple of things here, aren't there? Multiverses is what I'm getting here from Jesse. Can we speak as clearly as possible? Yeah, right. about the universe in the multiverses. So there's only one universe, and all multiverses, all of the different apparently contained, boundaried revelations of multifarious points of tension are in the only one universe. If we start adding, it's the problem of the many and the one. And we may think that we live in a universe which is one of many, but then immediately it becomes the only one, with many parts, which are simply many self-perceptions of the one universal logos. So let's say, well, there are other universes. Okay. But there is a point of tension in which there are no other universes, except for the ones that have transpired, and which were also, in this sense, multiverses in the one. So it's very important to get consciousness into a state where an all-prevailing oneness subsumes any manifestation of the many. It's we must resolve the many, no matter counting how many there may be, into a oneness, beyond which there's no more variety for that particular incarnation of absolute infinity. And so it's a third-rate task in a way, and it has to be undertaken. I think shouldn't limit it to the third ray, but philosophically, people who have a lot of that and certain unitive tendencies on the other rays, they must resolve the many into the one. And Fred,
Michael?
Yeah, yes.
You had some more comments up above where I think you started. Martine.
Yeah, I've got it.
And Vivian.
You go ahead. You read it.
Okay. Martine says, I am all in all, maybe, or other words to comprehend the same.
You can say so. And I was just thinking the very same thing today. We allow ourselves that ultimate expansion of identity until we discover, that there's no expansion at all. It's just forever the immovable, immutable essence. And we can describe it that way. And every once in a while, for a little while in relative time, we have to allow our imagination to travel to the ends of what we think of as the universe, our universe, preceded infinitely, and get the feeling of it, of what it means to be everywhere, to know everything, and to will everything. The first three aspects of divinity particularly. So the all-in-all idea is it's conducive to the state of realization that we want to achieve. Okay?
Okay, and then I also want to follow up. Earlier you mentioned what Patanjali says in Light of the Soul. And I looked up what I believe is the reference that you were talking to. It's in book 4 on illumination, and it's Sutra 5 on pages 386 to 388. The title of the sutra is Consciousness is One, yet produces the varied forms of the many. And then it goes on to say what you mentioned about, within the little cosmos is the heavenly man and the planetary logos, and the microcosm reveals the nature of the macrocosm in that sutra. So I believe that's what you were referring to earlier.
Yes, it sounds pretty much like it. And there was one reference about all the consciousness of all things, the universe as being within oneself, something like that. And so the reference that you've pulled out is very much along that line, and there may be, I don't know, another one. The interesting thing is that DK says the masters study book 3 and book 4 of the Yoga Sutras. So if we take him at his word, we can imagine the kind of profundity that came out of that great master Patanjali 10,000 years ago or whatever. There were many Patanjalis, many, they take the same name, but this great sage set the whole Raja system, yoga system going, and somewhere it even talks about 10,000 years ago. But that's still, if you think of it, a relatively short time, and within the 1,000,000-year or more Aryan fifth root race. So we're just picking up later, much later, things that have been enunciated about the truth that even the masters find useful for study. We have such a feast of light given. He says, every disciple should have the Yoga Sutras as their companion, and the Bhagavad Gita, and the New Testament, and the Viveka Kudamani, the crest jewel of discrimination. Is it the Chatterjee translation? By Shankara. Those 4 books kept close. Yeah. Okay. And I agree. This is Vivian speaking, isn't she? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, she says, and thank you for the beautiful meditation this morning at the ingress.
Yeah, we'll have to thank Tuya on that. And then as soon as I get the right one to BL, this will be posted as well. And, we try to do all the ingress meditations, but I don't know, sometimes we just run out of time and energy to do it. But I'm glad we really did this one. Tuya insisted on it. And takes a long time to prepare those things, And the combination of music and image and DK's words and Tuya's interpretations and all that, I think it really takes us somewhere. I know for myself, I really felt something this morning when it was presented. And maybe that's the case for a number of you who were able to be there.
Okay, and Thomas says, very expansive presentation, sir, thank you. Somewhere along the way, the thought occurred to me that my 5 human senses are a reference point within the awareness of universal consciousness. The personal mind is a record of the perceptions created by those senses. The goal is the release, the hold of that record, thus moving into the wholeness of that universal consciousness, expanding the reference point, and perhaps ultimately releasing the reference point itself. Regarding energy, perhaps it is an oscillation in the fabric of being.
I think that's a very sharp analysis of what's going on. So, you know, that's a thought-provoking statement. And the whole idea of a reference point ties us in with what we could call a point of tension of a specific intensity. And there are so many of them. And they are hierarchically arranged in any universe, a point of tension. We have hierarchical ascent in a pyramidal configuration. That's how I think of it anyway. The very highest point of tension being that of the universal logos itself, any universal logos. And below that, many reduced points of tension, you know, compressed until we get down to the reference point, which any one of us happens to be, and which the senses kind of confirm. And, you know, we begin with the senses, but then, of course, we work on relating them to the universal, the universal situation. I suddenly have everybody on my screen that wants to too many things. Sorry, you know, I have to learn how to avoid pop-ups, you know. So I would say a very keen analysis, and obviously your own thought, which I appreciate. Of course, the personal mind can relate to other more subtle areas of the personality too, the astral senses, the mental senses, and so forth, and other levels of the mind to even higher senses. Page 188, Treatise on Cosmic Fire, all the way up to all knowledge. So our whole mental faculties relate to synthesizing many points of tension, and the perceptions that they give. We might say the subtle senses that they give. So we synthesize everything that's been given to us, and we enter the possibility of unification. The love energy will help very much, and the synthetic understanding, and depends on what we mean by universal consciousness, of course, because basically none of us is even close to anything like that. There was a book called Cosmic Consciousness by Buck, and he was the disciple of Walt Whitman, kind of. But DK assures us that although Whitman was an initiate, it's nothing near universal consciousness. So it depends on what we mean by that. And oftentimes we mean a very broad and embracing consciousness, but we can also mean solar systemic consciousness. And the kind of universal consciousness I'm talking about is like totally beyond the reach of almost anything in cosmos. But, you know, you want to take it all the way to the top, at least in terms of a paradigm, a structure. And it's an interesting statement. energy is an oscillation in the fabric of being. Well, definitely there is a movement when it comes to energy. I'll get into that as much as possible. And now we come into the question about Heraclitus and Parmenides. Parmenides espoused the immovability of all things, the essential immovability, and Heraclitus espoused nothing but change. So we have to look at that in terms of energy. But okay, good analysis, Tom. Good analysis. Okay, let's go on. BL.
Okay. Jesse says, so like the layers of the never-ending onion, but still there is only one onion.
Yeah. Okay, it's a nice homely description. homely. Yes, and finally, there's nothing, and that nothingness is being. There's just no core to it. It just keeps on unfolding. But I still contend that the universe, any universe, is a limited perception, a limited self-perception of the universal logos, a universal logos, which is an extension into objectivity of absolute infinitude, which is the reflection, self-reflection of the one and only transcendental actor or deity. Now, every one of those words, would need some discussion, but there's nothing left to the onion, and that's pretty much where we stand. The limitation of a universe, necessary if can't be infinite, because then we'd need infinite time for any universe, which we don't have. But the limitation is willful cessation of self-perception. A universe is limited by willful cessation of self-perception by the universal logos. And let me just kind of write that down so I don't forget it. A universe is limited by willful cessation of self-perception on the part of the universal logos. Now, obviously, I have my own language, and you might want to have your own language to describe these things. I'm not advocating that everybody has to use the language that I'm choosing to use. I'm just trying to use basically the third ray to philosophically approach what I think I perceive. Okay.
Michael?
Yep.
While you're there, Fred says, please correct the typo. You have 8 M universal being, 8 BU. And I'm not so sure you haven't done the same thing a little earlier too.
It's not a typo, Fred. It's a deliberate, let me show you what I can do with 8s. Let's see if I can do this. This is a little bit strange. That's what it means. See, or maybe I can do even more. Maybe I start putting them together. There. That's a 88. The one before that was a 888. And that basically means the word I in the essential sense of I-ness, and even the degree of bolding or non-bolding of the 8 is relevant. And if I ever get my new book out in relative time, I'll explain my use of the figure 8. In a certain way, the 8th initiation is interesting. And it has to do with those beings who are able to go up onto the cosmic astral plane and come down again onto the cosmic physical and go up to the cosmic astral and down to the cosmic physical. They live in 2 worlds. And that 8 is a certain type of I-ness, which is relatively unlimited. So I'm glad you pointed that out, because usually it would look like a typo, but it's super deliberate. I'll explain it better when I get this Seeds of the Infinite book out to you. Okay, what else?
And I'm skipping a little ahead here, but I think Jesse was channeling what you were going to say, because he says the rays of being are 8 equals supra I-ness.
Yeah, there's this supra kind of I-ness that, sometimes I think I really have to work at getting my symbolism as straight as possible. But just to be really simple about it, when I put that 8 in, it means a higher form of I-ness than we usually consider I-ness to be. That's just a simplification. And unfortunately, I have too many symbols here. So I'm going to have to take them apart. And you'll notice that one of these, has to do with your universal being. I actually should have added a bolded 8 to a non-bolded 8 to a bolded I, which is the soul, to a non-bolded I, which is the personality. See, I'm just thinking of the flow of the continuity and how to symbolize that. But frankly, Jesse, I still have some corrections to make in order for it to be completely logical or hang together,
Jesse also says perhaps energy is a gradation of essence, like the rays of being is.
I think a gradation of essence comes pretty close to what I'm going to try to explain about it. There is a supreme intra-universal energy, and then many other derivations or gradations. Gradation's a good word, from that supreme type of intra-universal energy. So maybe bring that up when we get into it next time, and we'll see if we can match it all up.
And then Tia says, many thanks to Tuia for today's special meditations.
I think it really kind of captured the heart, frankly. I felt that. I just, oh my goodness. This Pisces energy and the way Tuya led us into it, I thought was really something special. So thank you, Tia.
And Aurea says pretty much the same thing. She says, the morning meditation was really brilliant. It touched my heart. Tuia was endowed with a lot of sensitivity. Pisces entering our system. And she is grateful.
Yeah, I think, obviously, this kind of study course that we're involved in right now is like super heady. But in terms of really feeling the universal love, or, the expansive love, and even making the transition into knowing that you are that love, from a practical point of view, those kinds of meditations that Tuya is leading get you there, so that I think is very important. Is that it then?
No, there's one more. Joan says vertical infinity.
Well, that's an interesting, you kind of wonder about things going on and on and on and on. And, then we'd have to do the definition between, obviously we're dealing with a cross, the horizontal infinity or infinitude and vertical infinity, and probably, well, it's inconceivable really, but probably absolute infinity goes in both directions. It's almost a guarantee that if you approach this kind of thing mathematically, you'll drive yourself crazy. That the great exponent of thought about infinity from a mathematical perspective. He was a Pisces with Jupiter and Uranus in Aries. His name was Georg Cantor, and he ended his days in an institution. He was rejected by so many concrete-minded mathematicians, but later there were others who took him up and just thought his contribution was brilliant. And I'm still, it's very particular, how he approaches these transfinite numbers. And I'm still trying to understand and so forth. But there's a book called, I think it's just called Infinity. It's by Moore. And he contrasts the mathematical infinity with what I would call more the experiential infinity. And I think he does a good job of it. And in as much as this is a problematic issue, the knottiest of all problems, I think he makes it relatively understandable if one has the patience. But I still have more to say about that. Not to say that it's going to be accurate, but at least it's going to be the point of view that I've worked hard to develop. Every time someone speaks about infinity, they have something different in mind. Leibniz was someone who really concentrated on the monad and its kind of infinitude, its registration of infinity. But he had a completely different idea than other speculators on these subjects. It does something to your mind. And I think it takes you possibly into the realm of the abstract mind, which we all have to learn how to cultivate during the next 2,000 years. But to experience that with the heart, I think, is the most important thing. And all the mathematical manipulations, well, certain types of minds can handle it, but the heart experience of pure being seems to me the most important thing.
And then Jesse adds, instead, perhaps internal infinity.
Every which way. You can't think of any, what do they call these things, axis, where this does not, where absolute infinity does not apply. So vertical, horizontal, internal, these are sort of time, space, positional categories. And okay, yeah, that, and everywhere is nowhere, is right here, but there's no here, and there's no there. There's only this immutable suchness that the Buddha, as a 6th degree initiate, was pointing to. So obviously words are going to fail, and if DK tells us that words are failing when he tries to discuss something much more relative rather than timeless, obviously, our usual words are not going to take us there. But maybe every one of us will find a formula of words, of symbols, that will take us closer to that utter still heart realization that comes, I sometimes joke, when you don't move your eyes from this to that to this to that. There is no this or that, and the heart knows it. It's like there are 2 eyes and 1 heart. And of course, there are many hearts, line in a way, but the Buddhic heart and the monadic heart and the hearts beyond, if we can stay in that perception of the heart, we start to overcome relativity. And what was Pascal? Of course, he took it from someone, but God is a intelligible sphere whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. It can't be only his idea, but he came up with that as the mathematician that he was. Okay, is that it then?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, good. Lots of good insights, everybody, and practice a little. I always try to grab a little relative time to practice. It's the way of going from Virgo, which is practice, into Pisces, which is somehow the realization of these things. I mean, if you want to look for the major sign of identification, it is occurring in Pisces, at least in terms of our local universe, at least in terms of what we can fathom here on the earth. So let's just, however we want to apply it, let's close with a great invocation. We'll have our glamour work tomorrow. And right now, I'll try to get to this, and let's see if I can find it. Maybe I don't know if I can find it. I mean, we should all know the great invocation, but sometimes I slip up. I don't know about you. So believe it or not, I'm trying to find the great invocation. Oh, here we go. Here we go. So in a minute, I'll try to show it to you. Right. Let's see. And there we go. we'll close, this has so many different levels of application, from the microcosmic to the macrocosmic. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center, where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you. And lots of love and many blessings from our whole communications group. Michael and BL and Tuya and myself and Joe, and we'll keep on trying to bring to you the the great teaching of Master DK, enriching our lives and helping others through that enrichment. Okay. And right here in the chat box, there's some addresses that you may want. Okay. And then I'll turn off the recording, but since I was not the first one here, then I think Michael Crow, then you can take care of that. I appreciate it.
Will do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all. See you tomorrow morning, as probably there'll still be some glamours in the world by that time, at least tomorrow morning here in Europe. We'll see you later. Bye-bye. I'm trying to stop that. Okay.